Hello, 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 dear colleagues from around the globe. And again, welcome to another session by Teach.Love.Earn with talented teachers from around the globe, everywhere, in all the corners of our earth. And today, as you can see, my guest is Hugh Dellar, the person who you probably know, at least you heard about, or at least if you are an ELT teacher, you saw his surname as on the cover of one of the most popular books, and I dare to say the best book right now and the most used book, Outcomes, which we teachers use in our ELT classrooms. Hugh, hello, happy to
Hello.
see you.
Thank you very much for the kind words and for the kind words about the books as well. It's always lovely to hear.
It is indeed so from all my heart, because I've been talking to my colleagues and everyone just adores this book, and this is top number one. This is what we use, this is what we like. And of course, if dear colleagues, any of these books, Innovations, Outcomes, Teaching Lexically, rings a bell to you, so this is the person who stands behind. And Hugh Dellar is also a co-founder, together with Andrew Walkley, of Lexical Lab. This is the educational center for students, for teachers, where you can improve your English skills, whoever you are, a student or a teacher. So Hugh Dellar is a teacher trainer, co-founder of Lexical Lab, and co-author of the book series, just for those who didn't know it. And today I have so many questions to Hugh. I hope that you guys will enjoy it together with us. This is absolutely impromptu session. We're gonna go with the flow and just enjoy the conversation. But if you have any questions, please feel welcome to drop them in the comments below, and we will definitely cover those. First of all, Hugh, how are you today? How are things?
I'm okay. I've been teaching all day, so I'm kind of a little bit frazzled, a little bit tired. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good. We've got lousy weather at the moment in London, so it's kind of cold and grey and wet. But on the plus side, I've been sitting inside working all day, so I haven't had to worry about the weather. So yeah, I'm good. I can't complain. I can't complain.
Wonderful, wonderful. I was looking forward to our session, and I'm so happy that we will be able to talk. And oh my God, which question should I start with?
Whichever one you want.
Right, I have different ones, so I'm going to cover something about the teaching process itself, about the books, about students' motivation, about teaching and learning languages, because Hugh Dellar is an absolutely outstanding personality, not only a teacher, but also has many hobbies. And it was so well said on your website, Lexical Lab. I checked that you said, in my far too limited time, I can imagine how limited it is, you still have time for music. Oh my God, this can be a shocking content for
Try to. Yeah.
some of
I
the
mean,
teachers. And I have to say that I actually Googled the band, and
oh
I
God.
was listening to music, and it's so nice. You know, I'm not a music expert, but if I may say, this music really reminded me kind of retro vibes from the Beatles, probably. Is it
Yeah.
the
I mean,
idea which stands behind? Can you say a word a little bit about it?
yeah. So I kind of grew up in the 80s, and growing up in the 80s, a lot of the music that was around didn't feel very relevant to me or very meaningful to me. And I think, like quite a lot of kids that age, I went back and listened to older music, and I kind of grew up listening to a lot of 50s and 60s music, and I played in bands all the time from when I was like 15, and played in bands a lot of my life. And the last 10 years I've been back playing with the guys I used to play with when I was younger. And we actually rehearsed last night, so I still meet regularly, and we're in the middle of we're planning to record some stuff this summer. And yeah, just kind of I've always enjoyed playing music and being around music people. And I think a lot of what happened to me in my life happened because of the experience of being into music first before I was a teacher or a writer. And I kind of learned a lot from that helped me in lots of ways as well. So yeah, it's always been quite a big part of my life. Yeah.
Which musical instrument do you play, and
God,
do you
I mean,
also
I don't
sing them?
really. I mean, I'm a harmonica player, so I play harmonica,
Okay.
and I kind of sing sort of badly. But I mean, I play bad guitar, bad drums, but I don't really play anything.
So you're just being shy. A
No,
talented
I'm
person is
being
talented
honest.
at everything.
I'm just being honest, honestly. I don't really play anything particularly. I mean, I'm the singer and the harmonica player, and that's it.
Wow. What is your favorite song out of all of the band's ones?
Oh God! Like
If
favorite
if
song of
there is one.
ours or favorite song ever?
Of the band.
Oh God, that's a really difficult question. So the one I like best that's on YouTube is a song called "Where the Waters Run Deep," and it's a kind of a single we made about 7 or 8 years ago. And there's a little video for that on YouTube if you're interested. But yeah, that
Absolutely.
was something we did that I was really pleased with, and it's come out well, and it sounds the way we wanted it to sound. So yeah.
Nice. It's so nice. I will make sure to check out this video and link it down below here, below this video, because why not? We need to listen to it and use it in our classroom, maybe.
Oh, you don't want to do that.
No? Students love songs during the classroom.
Yeah, probably not that one though.
Okay, so we'll be careful with that. And actually, I have to mention that Hugh provides weekly sessions on the Clubhouse if you're a member, and on different, absolutely different questions, which cover teaching, learning languages, teaching languages, and British culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been quite enjoying doing that.
Yeah, I remember I visited several of them, and on one of them I was asking you a question as well. It's a very cozy atmosphere there on Clubhouse.
Good.
So you can just have a chat and talk and ask anything you want.
I did read this morning that Clubhouse is now expanding onto Android. So
Very nice.
lots of people have been complaining, like, why is it only for iPhone? So if you're if you're an Android person, apparently you can now use the app there as well. So
very nice. That pays them a credit, because really it was not fair of them at all.
Yeah, I know. Apple prejudice, pro Apple prejudice.
Yeah. And Hugh, you also said that you write for a music magazine, and
I do,
you read a lot of books.
Yeah.
Could you please share a word about the books which recently influenced you in any views and any opinions, or those books which influenced your teaching style?
So the two best things I've read this year aren't really teaching related. They're both. I read a lot of non-fiction these days, I guess. I did an English literature degree when I was young, and I kind of just spent 4 years reading endless fiction and poetry and that kind of thing. And I think the older I get, the more I read non-fiction. The two best things I've read this year would be a book by Svetlana Alexievich, the Belarusian writer. I mean, pretty much everything she's ever read is quite amazing, I think. But I actually read, where is it? It's up there somewhere. Can't find it. But I read a book about women at war, basically. And it was the kind of story of women during the Soviet period and what their experiences of living through the war was, because you often hear the story of the war in terms of, you know, the Battle of Stalingrad or the Western Front or the Battle of the Somme or whatever, and you get quite a kind of male perspective on the war. And this book was really about women's experience of what happened during the war, and it was a very powerful book. The other book I read that really hit me this year was a book called Men Who Hate Women, which was kind of about spaces online where a lot of misogynistic stuff happens, where guys who have problems with women in different ways go and kind of become more radicalized and angry than they were already. And again, it's a very kind of powerful book. I mean, I've got two kids myself. I've got a daughter and a son, and I'm very aware of the kind of world they will grow up in and the pressures that they will be exposed to, and, you know, how the internet works. And I want them to be aware of all of that kind of stuff and know how to deal with that stuff. So yeah, those were the two books I read that had the biggest kind of personal impact on me. I think the books that had the biggest impact on me as a teacher were things I read a long time ago, actually. I mean, I still read teaching books, but I think the older I get, the more I kind of, you know, I read them more quickly than I used to. And I kind of go, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting as well. You know, but like most of it, a lot of the time I've read variations on the same themes before, and I kind of, it's hard to find something really new that I didn't know. When I was starting out in teaching and I was kind of hungry to read things, I kind of devoured every teaching book that was put in front of me. And I guess the things that had the biggest impact on me would have been things like The Lexical Approach by Michael Lewis, and then books about kind of discourse analysis and genre analysis. So Michael McCarthy, writing about discourse analysis and spoken language. Swales, writing about genre analysis, was a really big book for me. I mean, those are the three that immediately I remember as being massively influential. Michael Hoey, I always really enjoyed reading as well. He wrote a great book called Lexical Priming, which was really interesting for me. And then after that, I mean, there's just hundreds of things I've read that I really liked. I mean, I like Keith False. He's written a whole series of books called like Vocabulary Myths, Writing Myths, and kind of exploring some of the sort of false beliefs that people have about things. And yeah, they were very influential. I guess the most recent teaching thing that really hit me was the work of Richard Caldwell, who wrote a lot about listening and decoding. And he wrote a book called Phonology for Listening, and another one called, what is it? A Syllabus for Listening, Decoding. And both of those books really made me, they were kind of challenging. They made me rethink the way I was teaching listening and the way I was trying to help students get better at listening. So yeah, they were probably the last ones I read, which were really kind of eye-opening, you know?
Definitely. Wow. That's very good that we will have the recording, because I think that these 5 minutes will be able to listen again and again in order to take notes. And thank you so much for sharing. If people
get some new reading from this, then that's good.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning all of them. And when you mentioned the first book, I just realized that you also learn Russian. Am I correct?
No, I mean, I've basically failed to learn Russian. I've tried to learn Russian, but it's been an interesting experience for me, because I've been to Russia, like, God knows, 40 times or something. And I've been to lots of Russian-speaking parts of the world, or countries where Russian is a common first or second language, you know, like Ukraine or like Kazakhstan or you know, Belarus, where if you speak Russian, you can get by, basically. And I kind of avoided learning it for a long time because everyone I was hanging out with was English teachers, and they all spoke amazing English and they wanted to speak English. And so it kind of made me lazy. And about a year ago, I started trying to learn Russian. And I guess in many ways, I was like a typical kind of middle-aged student of English who doesn't have much time and who struggles to kind of get into the language. And I think because I was basically doing half an hour twice a week, and I wasn't finding time to do homework, and I wasn't making much progress, I was getting frustrated with how limited my language capabilities were. I would learn something and produce something in the class and then forget it almost immediately. And so at the moment, I'm taking a break from it because I just don't have time. And part of me, you know, I wonder, like, why am I learning this again? Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I, what was the logic behind this? But I think it's always good for language teachers to have that experience of trying to learn other languages and put yourself in your students' shoes, and it makes you a bit more, you know, sympathetic and understanding of how hard it is to remember things, particularly just the remembering. You know, it's not the seeing or the using or the understanding, it's the remembering.
Yeah.
And particularly when you're a low-level learner where just you forget things so easily, you know, and you realize how much work you have to put into things for the language to start to stick.
Yeah,
You
and the
know,
thing is that you may remember something, but it takes a little bit of seconds
yeah,
to kind of produce this
yeah,
sound, this word, and it's somewhere in your mind, but you cannot say it. That's
yeah.
the whole
Or you
thing.
remember part of it, or you remember the first word, or you remember it's like and you know, you remember like the shape of the word or the
Yes.
feel of the word, but the word itself has gone, you know. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so true. Hugh, could you please mention after you try to study a foreign language, then you stopped, and now you are coming back to this. How does your teaching change, like in practice? So you come to the lesson, and what do you do differently?
In terms of my own teaching,
Yes.
I'm not sure my own teaching has changed as a result of my failure to really learn much Russian. I know that when I was first, I mean, the foreign language I speak best is Indonesian. And I speak Indonesian because I lived there in the 90s, and I kind of had to learn it because if I didn't speak Indonesian, I couldn't go out and do things and go shopping and travel and all of that. So I was kind of forced to learn it. And I think that experience had quite a big impact on my teaching, because what that made me think about a lot was the importance of learning things you might actually say, um, the waste of time that we impose on students by teaching them things they're not ever going to say and they're not going to hear people say. And I think, you know, I've been guilty of that myself in my own teaching, of teaching things because I thought they were useful because they illustrated grammatical structures, even though they were basically nonsense and that students would never use them. And so it made me focus a lot more on just thinking about what's normal, what's natural, what's useful. Is the language I'm teaching actually language that people really use? And if it's not, just get rid of it. So it also made me think about the importance of repetition and having the chance to have similar conversations again and again and again and again and again, and just getting better at those conversations with practice over time, and not being ashamed of repetition. Um, I think it also made me think about the importance of repetition and having the chance to have similar conversations again and again and again and again and again, and just getting better at those conversations with practice over time, and not being ashamed of repetition. Um, and not being ashamed of repetition. Um, and not being ashamed of repetition. I think it also made me realize that you kind of, things are learned over time through experience and exposure. So you think you've learned a word, and then you learn that you don't quite understand how that word really works, or you hear it used in slightly different ways and you think, ah, that word doesn't quite do what I thought it did, or so that word works here but it doesn't work here. And it made me kind of realize that, like, your knowledge is always provisional and always developing, and that you kind of you're constantly layering what you know about how the language works. And yeah, so I think that had a much bigger impact on me. When I was trying to learn Russian, I mean, it didn't teach me anything I didn't know, apart from just reminding me of the importance of repetition and memory, and thinking about ways of making memorization easier, and building in time to your teaching, especially low-level students, for repetition, revision, recycling. You know, so I mean, 50% of any class I would do at that level is just going back and then going a little bit forward, and then going back and then going a little bit forward, you know.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And having said that, actually, I wanted also to ask, how can we help our students to feel progress? So obviously, repetition and recycling would be one of the ways how they can notice that they do study something,
Yeah.
of course. And you, what do you think would be the other ways to help students to see the progress? Because we obviously, teachers, keep in mind kind of the syllabus, the whole program, and
Yeah.
we see their progress. However, do they see it? Do they feel
So
it?
I think it's a really important question, actually, Olga. And I think that a lot of students get frustrated and demotivated because they don't feel they're making progress. And so I think, as teachers, trying to think about ways in which we can make that learning that's occurred, or make that progress that's happened, visible, is really important. Because when you actually see that you've learned something, it's like, ooh, okay, I can do that. And I think it shows the importance of kind of soft testing. Okay. And I think, you know, often when we think about testing in teaching, testing is like a scary thing. It's something stressful. It's something where you have to have a grade, and there's top of the class and bottom of the class, and parents get angry and all of that. And, you know, sometimes it's necessary to do that kind of testing. If you're working in a school, or you're working towards an exam or something, that's like a kind of necessary evil. But I think, actually, like, low level, low stakes testing is also really important. So that might just mean something like beginning each lesson with a kind of revision activity, and maybe it's, here's 10 verbs from the last lesson and the words they went with. Can you match the verbs with the words they went with? Here are 12 sentences from last lesson. Can you remember the missing words? Okay, check your answers with your partner. Here are 6 questions about some of the language we looked at last lesson. Discuss them with your partner. So that's one way where students can kind of go, oh, I remembered 9 out of the 12 missing words. I'm learning something. And as a teacher, you can kind of see, hey, well done. I think there's lots of other ways you can do that kind of low stakes testing as well. So it could be things like, when you're writing things on the board, and, you know, maybe based on things you've heard students say, you gap certain words and you paraphrase and you elicit. And if the students shout out the word, you're like, ah, you remembered, good. And so again, for students, there's that kind of feeling of like, oh, I've shown myself and my teacher that I've remembered something. It can also just be things like little memory tests. So if you've done an exercise in a book and you've matched, I don't know, 8 questions to 8 answers, you know, at the end of the lesson, A, B, A, B, A, B, B, close your books, A, read out the answers, A, can you remember the questions? Okay, change over. B, read out the questions. A, can you remember the answers? And I think sometimes teachers don't do these kinds of exercises because they're worried students won't remember everything. It's like, no, don't expect them to remember everything. Expect them to remember something. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think if students remember something, there's that kind of feeling of like, well, okay, you know, I'm learning something. I remembered something. Still got some way to go, but at least I'm learning something. Other things you can do, I think, are things like when I was doing my Russian classes, we would often do like audio recordings where the teacher would send me bilingual recordings and say things in English and then say them in Russian. So it would be things like, I don't know, like, you know, have lunch. I'd go, oh God, have lunch, have lunch. Обедать, okay? And then you'd listen and it'd be like, обедать. And then it'd be like, husband and wife. Oh, husband and wife. Муж и жена. And then you'd play it and then you'd hear it. And so I think things like that, again, where it's focusing on particular chunks of language and it's testing, can you remember the language, is a way in which you can make your own learning more noticeable, more visible, and, you know, a way that you can kind of track your progress and track the fact you're getting better. And so I think lots of that little kind of soft testing, I would call it, yeah, it's really important.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Hugh, for such detailed answer. Really, it's all about the balance, as far as I understood it, because we teachers know how much the material we have in front, and we want to give our students as much as we can, especially if it is kind of the strict program in a school or even private school. We always have this strict syllabus. I remember it really pushes and brings some kind of limits. However, yes,
yeah,
we need to devote the time.
Sorry, Olga. And I guess in that situation, sometimes you might just need to accept that you can't do too much of this kind of thing in the classroom. And so instead you think about ways that you can revise and recycle things. So it might be, you know, if you are using a course book, you make a kind of Quizlet set for each unit. And next time you reuse the book with another class in the same year or whatever, you've got the Quizlet set and you can just go, right, so if you go on Quizlet, I've already made a set of cards for, you know, outcomes upper intermediate, unit 2. You can use that, you can test yourselves and you can check that. And it may be that just, you know, sometimes you need to encourage students themselves to take some more responsibility for that checking and developing of their own language, because you just don't have time in class because of the pressures of the institution. Yeah, but then it's just about thinking about how you do that better, or how you encourage students to do that better outside of the classroom.
True, yeah. True. Thank you. You know what came to my mind right now? I really want to ask you such a question. Because you're such an experienced educator, and I really value your advice and your answers, and I think this question will help me also in the future. I had a situation when I was a younger a teacher, meaning just a beginner teacher, and I had a student who was an adult, and she had to study English only because her company would push her, because that would be an international company, and it was so difficult for her because for some reason, you know, we have our own likes, dislikes, so we like some things more than others, for example, and it happens so that English was not her favorite language, not the one which she hated, no, however, was not her favorite, plus there would be such a strong push from the company, and she felt a lot of stress because of this. And that moment I was trying to help her, obviously, so we managed to complete her preparation for the test within the deadline. However, I always after that I felt that I could have helped her a little bit better, kind of maybe fall in love with the language, or kind of lower the stress. Do you probably did you ever had such situation, and what would you suggest doing in such case? How
I
can
would
we teach it?
suggest that lowering the stress is easier than making someone fall in love with the language. Okay. And if you are aiming to help a student in that kind of situation, ideally it's lovely to think that they might fall in love with the language, but they probably won't. And I think it's probably best just to kind of accept. I mean, what one of my Chinese students once said to me, like, you know, we're not interested in learning English because we want to become English or because we care about your culture. We're learning it because we need it. Okay. And for me, it's like, that's fine. You know, I mean, I don't expect that everyone's going to love the language and become obsessed with it. I think for most people, actually, I mean, this is the problem with my Russian in a way, is you learn what you need to learn in the situation you're in and probably no more, you know, unless you're a weird person who ends up becoming a language teacher. Um, you're probably not that interested in the language in and of itself. So if you accept that, I think what you can then do is to think about, okay, so that's not going to happen, but this student is still really stressed. What can we do to reduce the stress levels? And I think that then just comes down to your relationship with that student, the way you talk to that student, how interested you are in them, how you try to connect the language to their own reality, how you give something from yourself and your own experience and your own reality using English to communicate those ideas. And I think in the end, it's that kind of bond between the teacher and the student that makes the student relax a little bit and realize, like, okay, you're not just going to punish me for making grammar mistakes. You're not just here going red mark, oh, you know, with your red pen kind of marking everything they do. That you're treating them first as a fellow human being, someone who you're interested in, someone who intellectually you're on the same level as. Maybe you can learn something from them about things they know more than you do about. And I think all of those kinds of aspects, they won't necessarily make that student fall in love with the language, but they will make them relax in the language classroom. And it will make them, you know, maybe spending that hour a week with you is less stressful than spending an hour in a meeting with the boss, you know? And I think it's the same often for kids, where you get those kids from very pushy, high powered parents, and the kids are like, you know, Monday is English, Tuesday is French, Wednesday is ballet, Thursday. It's like, when do they live, these kids? Like, when do they just relax and play? And I think in those situations, again, kind of relating to the people as people first, rather than as language students or as, you know, people who have to get 60% on test X or whatever. I think that's much easier to do. And that really helps to take some of the pressure and the stress away. So I mean, that would be the way I would approach it first, is, you know,
Yeah.
you want to understand the psychology of the person that you're in the room with.
Yeah, I can imagine. I totally get what you are saying, and I guess sometimes I hear people saying that, oh, this person talks about this particular subject with so much passion that I kind of become interested in it, or I'm interested. I want to know about it. I want to also be so much passionate about it.
And I think when you realize, you know, it's almost like learning language by default, because if you're using the language to talk about interesting things, then the student's interested in the interesting thing, even if they're not necessarily interested in the language. And it's like, you know, by giving them, here's an interesting present, but it's wrapped up in some language, it's like you have to kind of deal with the wrapping first before you get to the interesting thing. So, you know, I still don't think that will generally make most people fall in love with the language, but it might make them fall in love with the class and fall in love with the experience of being in the room and having that communication.
Oh, this is so well said. Oh my God, I need to quote it. Wow. Thank you for this answer. May I ask you, do your children learn any language? I mean, obviously, apart from English.
Yeah, so no, generally is the answer to that. When my daughter was very young, we did try to speak Indonesian to her because my wife's Indonesian. The problem is, I mean, my wife hasn't lived in Indonesia since she was 19, so her whole adult life has been in English. And so I think for her, it was kind of just weird. Like, I don't know how to talk to children in Indonesian. It's easier for me to do it in English. We also had this moment where when my daughter started going to a childminder, she realized the childminder didn't speak Indonesian and didn't understand her. And she became kind of, why am I learning this language that nobody else speaks? And I think it's weird if you're a kind of mixed nationality couple, there's a kind of weird pressure on you to like, oh, your children aren't bilingual. Oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, well, there's lots of other pressures involved in bringing up kids. It's like just getting your kids to sleep or teaching them to read or, you know, just surviving as a parent and with a young family is difficult, I think. So we didn't really end up teaching them Indonesian, and we just kind of gave up on that, I think. My kids do Spanish at school, but pretty terrible Spanish classes. And I think if you asked either of them, they wouldn't be able to tell you more than 2 sentences in Spanish, even though officially they've been doing Spanish at school for like 3 years. I think generally it's a kind of sign of English isolationism and English exceptionalism and this kind of belief that we don't need to learn foreign languages because everyone speaks our language. That I think foreign language teaching isn't taken particularly seriously in schools in England, and I don't think it's taught particularly well. So I'm hoping they will improve and do a foreign language for O levels, but they do both have classes every week, but you wouldn't know it from talking to them. The main thing my son says is like, you know, Spanish is even more boring than maths. It's like the maths is too easy and the Spanish is boring. And I think my daughter's just like, I don't like my language lessons. But they do also kind of just learn weird stuff where you look at it and go, why would anybody need to learn this stuff? So yeah, no, they really don't. They really don't.
I see.
Yet.
But the moment will come, you know, maybe they will.
Let's hope so. You know, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
I see. Oh, actually, I prepared such question as well. And as we mentioned, the schools, I mean, anyone from our colleagues who are watching us right now or in the recording would agree that there is a huge difference between kind of state schools, of course, and private schools, meaning those evening schools when children come for extra classes, or adults as well. And we all know the main problem probably because of these different levels in one classroom or so. But keeping everything in mind, Hugh, let's imagine if you were a Minister of Education in UK or any country or the whole world, how would you change? What kind of changes would you implement? Have you ever thought of it?
Yeah, I have. So I would say the first thing is stop looking for quick fixes and stop promising easy solutions. So I think a lot of education systems around the world, they say things like, you know, if you vote for us, we will halve class sizes, or we will bring computers into every classroom. And they make these kind of flashy, you know, gimmicky kind of promises. And I don't think that's generally what makes for better education. I would like to see education systems where it's recognized that what really makes a difference to kids learning isn't the class size. It isn't whether they're using computers in the classroom or not. It's the teacher. And, you know, a good teacher with a big class and no computers will get better results than a less experienced teacher with a small class and the new technology. And I think education systems should prioritize teacher training and teacher development and ongoing continual professional development, and help teachers to recognize what it is that we do that has the biggest impact on learning. And I think it's just it's simple things, you know, it's doing the simple things really well. So it's to do with the quality of feedback that you're able to give. It's to do with the kind of examples that you give and how you explain things to your students. It's to do with whether you can connect the subject, any subject you're teaching, to your students' lives and experiences and realities. It's whether you leave space in the classroom for the students to contribute, and what you do with their contributions and how you feed back on those contributions. It's to do with the expectations you have of your students and how you communicate those expectations. And it's to do with soft testing and making sure there's a sense of progress and development and all of those things. And I think the reason governments and education ministers everywhere don't talk about this is, one, because they don't know, because they're not teachers or educationalists, they're politicians. And two, because it doesn't sound sexy if you're running for parliament, if you kind of say, you know, if I become education minister, I will prioritize the continuing professional development of teachers. It's much more exciting to kind of go, I'll make sure every child has a tablet. And it's like, what's the point of a tablet if you're not training the teachers and it's not integrated into what the schools do? And it's just throwing money at a problem. So I would like to see teachers paid better, and I would like to see teachers get better training and have more say in the way they're trained and the way they're developed, and to learn to do the simple things as well as they humanly can. And I'd like the development to be paid, and I'd like the training to be paid. And I don't think it should be things that teachers should be expected to do for free while the government's busy throwing money at new computers. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Oh my God.
When I become education minister of the world.
Right, I will vote for sure. I was just thinking, you know, because when everything started, we know what was been here for a year. Many parents, I saw the, you know, publications on the social media, and everyone would be sharing, like saying, teachers are great, teachers are fantastic. And no one even expected that it would be for so long, right? So do you think that there will be any kind of strong, or maybe you already noticed in the UK, for example, changes on the in the education, on the role of a teacher, on the attitude to the teacher, on the relationship with the parents, teachers, students?
I hope it's made parents more aware of how bloody difficult teaching is. And I think when parents are forced to homeschool their own children, you realize things are harder than maybe you thought they were, and you need more patience than maybe you realized. And it's not easy to explain things in ways that are intelligible even to your own children sometimes. And so I hope that has given parents a kind of renewed respect for what?
When are you going to be done?
Another 15 minutes or so, Pickle. Sorry, my daughter.
No.
So I hope that's given parents a kind of renewed respect for teachers. At the same time, I'm not sure it will lead to more money or more investment in schools, because I'm sure the official story is going to be that we've had to spend money helping people survive through the corona crisis, so there's no money for teachers for the next 10 years. So, you know, sometimes I feel optimistic about it, and other times I feel quite pessimistic about it. I know in the UK, a lot of teachers are leaving the profession, and this has been exacerbated by Brexit, where Brexit has made EU teachers working in the UK feel unwelcome. It's made it more difficult for EU teachers to stay in the UK. And so, I mean, like at my kids' schools, both the schools they work at, they've had amazing teachers from Romania, from Poland, from France, from, you know, very international group of teachers working there doing amazing work. And so I think because of the kind of the politics of what's been happening here in the UK anyway, that's going to lead to changes for the worse, actually. And I think that the education system will lose some really good teachers because of some idiotic political decisions.
Always takes place. I guess the more I talk to teachers, the more exposed to kind of inner problems I get, because, you know, it's always being in my own country, back in Ukraine. I always thought that this is only us who have such terrible problems, and now I see
Talking
that,
to teachers, you realize that there's similar problems everywhere. I think, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Hugh, could you, because you mentioned the continuous teachers development,
Yeah,
and you provide monthly webinars
we
and the
do.
trainings, could you please say the very recent insight on the most important skills or knowledge for teachers today?
So I think it's interesting you added today, because I'm not sure that I'm always quite skeptical of the kind of 21st century skills kind of stuff. And I think a lot of it is just sales talk and ways of selling old things to people in new clothes. I think the most important thing for teachers are being able to do the simple things well. And I think, you know, what's interesting for me working with already quite qualified, quite competent teachers a lot of the time is when you look at, say, okay, here's a listening exercise. What would you do for the pre-listening task? What would you do when you're going through the answers? What would you do with the speaking afterwards? Most teachers kind of do similar things, but they're always slightly different. And within each little difference, you kind of go, okay, well, there's a reason why this way of doing it is better than that way of doing it. Let's talk about that. And I think it's often to do with just learning how to do the little things you do every day, like explaining vocabulary, giving examples, managing speaking sections in the classroom, giving feedback on speaking, revising, recycling, all those things that as a language teacher, that's just part and parcel of what you do every day. You know, in a way, if you made a list of like, what do language teachers do? There's only like 20 things we do, basically. You know, it's like you do pre-reading or pre-listening tasks, you do comprehension questions, you do post-reading or post-listening tasks, you do grammar exercises, you do speaking practice. You know, you explain vocab, you check answers. There's not millions of things we do, but within those things that we do a lot, there are endless variations in the way that you can do them. And sometimes making a little change to the way you do something in one of those areas makes a big difference to the experience of what happens in your classroom and the learner's experience. And so I think my main feeling is teachers need to learn how to do everyday simple things as well as they possibly can. And that was the same in the 20th century as it is in the 21st century. Maybe the only difference is that now some of that will be occurring through Zoom or through Google Teams or whatever. but the principles are basically the same, I think. So yeah, I guess I think about teacher development like that. I also think too many teachers spend too much time worrying too much about technology when that's not the biggest problem that is facing them or their students. You know, and I think we're kind of bombarded by, you know, 67 new apps that every teacher should be using. It's like, just you don't need it. You just choose one app that does something simple that you know how to use, and use that in a principled, consistent way, and delete the email about the 67 apps every teacher should be using, because you don't have time to look at them all. Even if you find the ones you like, you don't have time to just keep it simple. Don't overload yourself. Don't feel guilty because some other teacher is using some piece of technology you've never heard of. Using technology doesn't make you a good teacher or a bad teacher. It just makes you a teacher who uses technology. And I think in the end, what students really value isn't the fact that you used 5 different apps during your 1 hour lesson. They value you, you know, they value you. And I think what when you ask people who was your most memorable teacher at school, no one's going to say, oh, it was the teacher who used the most technology in my class. It will never be this. It will be the teacher who connected with you on a human and personal level, and who connected the subject that they were teaching to your world and your reality, and they understood you and they talked to you as a human being. And so I think it's really about not being distracted by the shiny new bells and whistles, and focusing on the essential core things that in a way teachers have always done, you know.
This
Yeah,
is so well said. Thank you. Thank you, Hugh, for this answer. Um,
I
okay.
should warn you, Olga, I'm gonna need to vanish at 5:30, so
Yes, yes. That's why I wanted to wrap it up.
okay. Sorry
Just
to,
to
to, to
say,
interrupt.
no worries. I thank you so much for all this time, for our wonderful conversation, all the answers, totally valuable and helpful and so much enjoyable. Thank you so much, Hugh, for your time.
Thank you. You
Yes,
got time for one more if you want.
you mean one more session?
No,
Another
one more
time?
question you've got time for.
Oh, one more question. Probably let's mention that on Lexical Lab, everyone can experience the monthly webinars that you deliver.
Yeah.
Everyone can check the programs. Can you say a little, a few words?
Yeah, so basically what we do with Lexical Lab is 3 or 4 different things. We run monthly webinars, usually on the 3rd Saturday of every month, mostly about language teaching, but sometimes about different aspects of British culture. So I did one on Brexit, and I think I did another one about the legacy of Margaret Thatcher. So yeah, we do that. We also have some online teacher development courses, which you can do either as sort of self-study courses, which are available for a year, or which you can do sometimes face-to-face. We have a course on listening, teaching listening. We have a course on planning and planning better, and kind of thinking about how to use the course book in a more intelligent and less stressful manner. We have another one on teaching low-level learners, and we're in the middle of doing one on developing your own materials, and hopefully we'll be adding new courses there during the year. On top of that, we run kind of weekly 1 hour, kind of like speaking club conversation classes, particularly working with non-native speaker teachers of English who already speak really good English and want to get even better. So it's always a kind of challenge for us to sort of think about, God, well, what can we teach them? They know everything already. And so, yeah, we write all our own material for that, and we make our own revision activities and revise and recycle the language through all of that. hopefully next year we'll be back to running our London summer school. Pre-COVID, we were doing 1 and 2 week courses in London every year, doing teacher development and language development courses, with a big kind of cultural, social program, taking people out around London and exploring the city as well as doing the courses. And yeah, that's what we do. We're also on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and Clubhouse. So have a look for Lexical Lab in any of those spaces and find out what we do and what we offer if you don't know us already.
And your 1 minute English is just adorable. Oh my God, it's just, you learn so much in 1 minute, and it's totally pleasant and enjoyable. And I love the way you put it, like the teachers, they already speak very good English, but they want to be better. That's so kind and sweet of you.
It's true, it's true. I mean,
no, but you know, we teachers, we always tend to think, oh my God, I don't know so much yet, and I have not got what that native speaker said. I need to learn more, and I need to improve my English.
This is a healthy way to think, because, you know, this keeps you open to the possibility of further development. It's when you think you know everything already that you have problems.
Yeah.
No, so.
That's true, that's true. All right, and one more event which we probably should mention, Hugh, that on the 28th of May, right? Yes. You're going to deliver also the talk, the speech on the Teacher's Voice Marathon, which is a huge event as well, which is going to last about 8 hours, like ongoing.
Yeah, I can't remember what I'm doing for that, so I'm glad you've reminded me. Let me check my diary.
All
yes,
right, so
I am. I'm doing a little 20-minute talk. I'm just doing a 20-minute talk on 5 things I've learned from my students.
Wow. Oh my God.
And kind of 5 ways in which strange things that happened in my class influenced my teaching and changed my teaching for the better.
This is so curious. For sure. I will
come
be
along.
there. For sure, I'll get you registered, and I will put a link down below for everyone to register. Don't miss it, but if you miss it, it will be available, I hope, on YouTube. So that is all. Thank you so much, Hugh, for your time, for this wonderful conversation.
For your time and for what you're doing with all of this, yeah?
Thank you, and I hope this is not our last session. We will see each other again.
We can try and do something again, yeah?
Right. So thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us till this moment, for watching this video till this moment. Please make sure to check out the Lexical Lab YouTube channel, Lexical Lab Instagram channel.
I'll put some links in later as well, Olga. If you send me the YouTube link, I'll put a few links in as well, yeah?
Yes, yes, that would be wonderful. Please give us a like for this video, because it will give the opportunity for other teachers as well to find this video and to find this channel. And hope to see you next time. Thank you so much, guys, and bye-bye.
Thank you, and take care. Yeah, enjoy your evening.